A client is an area in a system with some data on which a user can access the tables of a database. Okay. So what is logical entity means what exactly? So logical means it's not a
Logical.
physical one, right? Logical means you cannot touch it. If it is a physical, you can touch it. Logical means it's not a physical one. Just like we have taken example for client as a hard disk, right? This is our hard disk of 200 GB. What we do, we segregate our hard disk into. My screen is visible, guys.
No.
No,
Yeah.
no, sir.
No.
See, this is my hard disk. This hard disk, I am making 4 partitions into that. Physically the hard disk is only one, but I am making 4 partitions. Am I cutting my hard disk into 4 different parts here? No. Just we are creating some logical boundaries within the same hard disk. Physically the hard disk is one, but we are segregating, we are creating some logical boundaries. We are creating some compounds within the hard disk of 50 GB, 50 GB, 50 GB. When you purchase 200 GB hard disk, will you get 200 out of 200 out available memory? No, obviously not. So how much you will get? For example, how much you will get? Nearly up to 192, right? 192 means 48 GB, 48 GB, 48 GB, 48 GB. And where is 8 GB going? That 8 GB is having some internal programming. And you segregated this hard disk into 4 parts. One is C drive, D drive, E drive, and F drive. C drive, we are installing the operating system. D drive, we are having songs. E drive, movies. F drive, software. See, if I want to access software, can I log in into C drive, access software? No. I have to log in into F drive. So this software, songs, windows, and movies are drive dependent, right? And where this 8 GB is going, when you purchase 200 GB hard disk, you are getting only available space 192. Then where is that 8 GB going? Means every hard disk requires some internal programming to function that hard disk properly. Without that internal programming, your hard disk won't run. That 8 GB data internal programming is common for all the drives. To run C drive, D drive, E drive, F drive, you need that 8 GB of data. So that 8 GB is independent data. And Windows, songs, movies, and software are dependent data. Means if you want to access a dependent data, you have to log in into that particular drive. If you want to access independent data from C drive, D drive, E drive, F drive, for all these 8 GB is common, right? Are you getting the point? Dependent data and independent data. What is the hard disk definition? Hard disk is a logical entity, right? Hard disk is a physical one. Drive. What is drive? Drive is a logical entity. Is a drive physical? No, hard disk is physical. Drive is within hard disk, you are creating some logical component, logical boundaries. That is the reason I am saying drive is a logical entity with some data. Every drive is having some data on which a user can access the files of the hard disk drive. The same way we have client concept in SAP. So whatever the client you know till now, what is client according to you? The person who is requesting you something, the person who is giving you work. That is what, and the PC which is requesting some other server, that is client. But when it comes to SAP, the client concept is entirely different. Client means, why we use this client means, remember, to isolate business data. To isolate business data. Why I am using drives in a hard disk? I can save all the data in one drive, entire hard disk, but I am segregating my hard disk into 4 different drives. Why I am doing like that? To isolate the data. To isolate songs, I am creating D drive. To isolate software, I am creating F drive. The same way, in business, we want to isolate some data. LB Nagar branch data, Dilsuk Nagar branch data, or else SD, sales and distribution department data, HR department data. If you want to separate some data, that is the reason we are using client. Means where the client resides, in SAP where the client resides means in a database. Where your data is residing? In SAP? Database only, na? All the data, your business data as well as your SAP repository, everything is storing in the database level only. You have nothing at application level. Only at application level you are having the two OS level users, that SAP services, that USR SAP directory, and that log files, everything. That's it. Your kernel, everything. But entire your business data and the software repository, everything you are saving in the database. So client is exactly like a drive. Drive is a logical entity in a hard disk. Client is a logical entity in a database. In a drive, why you are using that drive? To isolate some data. Every drive is having some separate data. The same way here also in database, every client is having separate data. To access that separate data, we are creating multiple clients in a database. For example, one client is SD client, one client is MM client, one client is HR client. SD client, if you open SD client, you will see only SD related data. If you open MM client, you can see only MM related data. The same way, if you open D drive, you can only see the songs, right? So same way, how you are segregating data in a hard disk, the same way in SAP also we are segregating our databases data in the form of clients. So client is a logical entity. Every client contains some data. That data are two types. One is dependent data, another one is independent data. How your drive is having dependent data and independent data, the same way every client has its own data as well as common data. Own data means the data which is specific to that particular client is called as a client dependent data. The data which is common for all the clients are called as cross client data. What is the meaning of cross client data means, or else you can also call it as client independent data. That means if you log in, for example, I am having 4 clients, 100, 200, 300, 4 clients in a database. Every client has its own data. SD client, MM client, finance client, HR client. If you log in with SD client, you can only see SD data. If you log in into MM client, you can access only MM data. Along with that MM data, some common data will be there. You can access that common data as well as MM data. If you log in into SD client, you can access SD data and common data. HR client, you can access HR data and common data. So in a client in a database, we are having two types of data. So one is client dependent data, another one is client independent data. Hard disk is collection of drives, right? The same way database also collection of clients. Where you save data? In clients. Where you save data in hard disk? In drives. These drives are having two types of data. The same way your client also having two types of data. One is dependent data, second one is independent data. The data which is specific to that particular client is called as client dependent data. The data which is common for all the clients is called as cross client data. Is it clear with everyone? Nothing but to access your data in a database, we use client concept. That's it. The same way how you use drive concept to access the data of your hard disk. Finally, the data is saving in your hard disk only. Finally, the data is saving in your database there. But to access that, here you need drive. In a database, you need client. Simple definition. Why we are using drives? To isolate the data. The same thing, why we are using client means to isolate the data. So overall in a database, how many types of data we are having? We are having two types of data. One is client dependent data. Second one is client independent data. Is it clear with everyone? Can I move to next slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. See, so in a database, we are having two types of data, right? One is dependent data, second one is independent data. When you are having two types of data, how many types of tables you will have in database? Database is a collection of tables, na? In a tabular format, you save the data. In a hard disk, you are saving in the form of files. In a database, you are saving in the form of tables. When you are having two types of data, how many types of tables you are having? Obviously, two types: client dependent tables, client independent tables.
No, independent tables.
Only two types of tables we are having, right? So, how to find out whether a table, for example, if I give one table name, you have to find out whether the table is client independent or dependent. Client independent means what? Client independent table means, for example, if I am having 100, 200, 300, 400 clients. If you log in with 100, 200, 300 and 400, you can access that table. That type of table is called as client independent table. You can access from any client. Client dependent table means, for example, one client is dependent of 100. If you log in with 100 client, then only you can access that table. If you log in with the 200, 300 and 400, it won't show you that data. So how to find out whether a table is client dependent or independent? Simple. If you have first field as a mandate, if you open that table, if you find a mandate as a first field, then it is called as a client independent data. Sorry, client dependent. If you find mandate as a first field, it is a client dependent table. Can I show you the example otherwise? Give me one table name, boss. USR02. USR02 table. I want to check this table.
Screen is not visible.
Screen.
Wait, I'll share. See USR02 table. How to open any table? Go to SE16. USR, give you table name and say enter. And say execute. See, if you are finding my screen is still not visible.
Screen is not presenting.
Why? Why so? Now?
No, no. Still.
No.
Wait. Now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, see, SE16. To open any table, go to SE16, give the table name USR02 and say enter. Say execute. So, why you are writing on my screen, boss? Mandate. See, first field, mandate. Mandate means it's a German word. Client, it means client. So if you find the first field as a mandate, it is a client dependent table. If you don't have mandate as a first field, that is a cross client table. Any cross client table? What is the cross? BDLS, we'll try it. TBDLS. TBDLS table. What is the table name? TBDLST, I think. No entries. T000 is a cross client table, but it is T100. taking some time. Okay, I'll show you by end of the class. Okay, if you open any cross client table, you won't have as a mandate as a first field. See, mandate is a first field here, and if you open cross client table, you don't have. So there is no restriction. You can log in into 100 client, 200 client, 300 client. It will show all the entries. This is what your cross client table look like. If it is a client dependent table, yes. For example, this is USR02 table. If I log in into 100 client, even though it is having some 1000 records, it will only show this record and this record. Why? These two belongs to 100 client. If I log in with the 200 client and open the same table, USR02 table, it will only show you one record, even though it is having 10,000 records. How beautifully SAP managed the data, see, by giving only one extra field called mandate. Mandate means client in Germany. If you open a client, if it is having mandate as a first field, that is a client dependent table. If it is a cross client table, there will be no mandate. If there is no mandate, means you can access from any client. If you log in with 100 client, 200, 300, 400, all the data will be available. Generally, your software, all your repository objects belongs to cross client tables. Your business data belongs to dependent tables. And when it comes to client, the overall the data type is two types: dependent data and independent data. In a database, in a client, you are having two types of data: client dependent data, client independent data. Again, these data are segregated into some other data like user master data, application data, client specific customizing data, cross client customizing data, and repository data. All belongs to client dependent, independent only. Few data are client dependent here, few data are client independent here. So user master data. What is the meaning of user master data? User name, their authorizations, their profiles, their passwords, everything comes under user master data. So user master data is dependent or independent? User master data is dependent or independent? See, if you log in, if you're trying to log in into the system, for example, I'm logging into some 000 client. I have to give 000 information there. So when you're logging into the client, it is asking for the client number 000. In 000, I don't have Shabana user, right? Okay, I don't have Ganesh user. If I give Ganesh user and some password, will it work? No, it won't work. So user master data is client dependent. User master data is client dependent. Each and every client is having its own specific users. For example, I'm having one finance client and MM client, SD client, different clients. SD client will have SD employees, finance client will have finance employees, HR client will have HR employees. So user master data is client dependent or independent?
Dependent.
User master data.
Dependent.
Client dependent data. It is dependent of that particular client. If you create user in 000 client, if you try to log in with 100 client, will it allow you to log in? No.
No.
So user master data is a client dependent data. And another thing, client specific customizing data. What is customization? I told you the meaning of customization is settings. Currency is equal to rupees, country is equal to India, time zone. These type of settings are there, right? You will be having so many options. From that option you have to select. State, you will be having some 28 state names, 29 state names. From that you have to select one. That type of settings are called as customizing settings. The name itself suggesting client specific customizing setting. The another one is cross client customizing setting, means this is local setting. The cross client customizing means global setting. Client specific means client dependent data or independent data?
Independent. Independent.
Dependent.
Don't confuse.
Dependent.
Dependent, sir.
Dependent, client specific data. For example, if I have two clients, I'll be having two different client specific datas. See, if I am having two clients, every client is having its own client specific. Client specific means every client will have its own data. So that is called as a client dependent data. I'll give you example. Wait. Application data. What is the meaning of application data? Application data means business data. For example, this client belongs to SD. Some other client belongs to MM. 100 client belongs to SD. 200 client belongs to MM. Why we are using client concept? The main use of client is to isolate the business data. You don't want to add all the data at one place. You want to maintain separate data. That is the reason we are using clients. So this application data is business data. SD business data and MM business data same or different? SD people will look into sales and distribution kind of things. MM people will look into the material management data, the stock, the raw material, the availability of the stock, everything. So the both belongs to same business, but the nature of the data is different. SD people will look into only sales related data, and MM people will contain only your stock related data, vendor related data, export import data, and raw material data, availability of stock data, this data. So application data, business data is client dependent or independent?
Dependent, sir.
Dependent. So by looking at the image also, you can say every client is having its own user master data, client specific data, application data. User master data, application data, client specific data. But when it comes to cross client customizing and repository data, cross client customizing means client specific customizing means each and every client has its own data, own settings. Cross client means across all the clients, these settings are common. Cross client customizing means it is a independent data or dependent data?
Independent.
Independent data.
Independent data, right? Okay. Repository data. Repository data means your programs, reports, screens, menu options of your SD, MM, finance, accounts, controlling, all the software related programs, reports, screens, everything. This software is common for all, right? That is the reason this repository data is a cross client data. So we are having totally two types of data: client dependent data, second one is client independent data. In client dependent data, we are having user master data, application data, and client specific customizing data. In client independent data, we are having cross client customizing data and repository data. These three are client dependent. These two types of data are client independent, or you can say cross client data. Okay. Can I give that example? That school example. If you are having some 8th class and 9th class, okay, this 100 is 8th class and 200 is 9th class. User master data means your attendance is the pupil. The pupil of that class, the same or different? 8th class and 9th class students are same or different?
Different.
Every class is having its own students, right? So that is user master data. Application data means your syllabus. 8th class syllabus and 9th class syllabus same or different?
Different.
Different. That is application data. Client specific customizing data means class timetable. 8th class will have separate timetable and 9th class will have separate timetable. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. 8th class first period is English. 9th class first period is mathematics. If I say both English means only I am having one faculty of English. How can he attend two classes? That is the reason we adjust the class timetables, right? For each and every faculty, we are having one hour for one class. That is the reason 8th class is having first period maths, second period English. Here, the first period English, second period maths. So the class timetable is specific to the class. That is client specific data. Cross client customizing data means your school timetable. The school will start at 9 o'clock and end at 4 o'clock and 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock lunch break. That is all. For all 8th class and 9th class, that timetable is common. School timetable is common. For example, tomorrow Sunday holiday. For 8th class and 9th class, both holiday only, right? This is class timetable, client specific customizing data. Cross client customizing data means school timetable. Repository data means your building, your school building, your school playground, your school principal, correspondent, and school uniform, you can say. Common for all, right? That is what repository data. Is it clear? Client dependent data and independent data. Simple boss. Dependent means if you log into that client, you can access that data. Independent means you can log in into any client, you can access that data. Simple. In a database, we are having only two types of data. In the two types, we are having user master data, application data. So if you want to access user master data of 100 client, where you log in?
100 client.
100 client.
If you want cross client customizing data, in which client you log in?
Any client.
Any client. If you want to access repository
Any client.
data from 100 client and 200 client, you can access repository data. If you want to access application data of 200, then you have to log in into 200. If you log in into 100, you cannot access 200's application data. You can only access 100's application data. That is what client. By using this client concept, we are isolating our business data. Isolation means separating our business data. That's it. So when you are trying to log in into SAP system for the first time, after installation, when you are trying to log in into the system, it is asking for 4 credentials. What are the credentials? When you are trying to log in into SAP system, the initial screen, it is asking for 4 credentials. What are they?
Client ID,
Client, user, password, and language. These 4 credentials the system is asking. Now it is a freshly, newly installed client, newly installed system. You want to do business in this. So you have to log in into the system. To log in, it is asking for client number, user ID, and password. That is the reason, without that client number, user ID, password, you cannot log in into the system. How can you implement SAP? That is the reason SAP is giving some default clients. What are the default clients are? 000, 001 and 066.
001, 066.
000, 001 and 066. So by using that 000 or 001, 066, you can log in into the system. 000. And the default users also SAP is giving SAP star, and another user is DDIC. Password we give at the time of installation, or the default password will be there. So I log in into the system. So I want to check the default clients. If you go to SCC4, this is T code. So by default 000, 001 and 066 is there. This 100 client we created from Hyderabad. Okay, Waldorf, German city address is this one. The currency is euro. So by default you get 3 clients: 000, 001 and 066. What is 000 client? 000 client is reserved by SAP to maintain R3 repository objects. The 000 client is called as master client, and 001 client is called as a reference client. 066 client is a early watch client. Master client. Why I am calling it as a master client? What is the meaning of master key? So you can open any lock, right? That is what called as a master key. So 000 means this 000 is having access to all the tables of the database. If you are having some 2000 tables in your database, you will have access to that 2000 tables. That is what 000 client. So 000 client is a master client. Remember this statement. It is reserved by SAP to maintain R3 repository objects. What is the meaning of repository objects? Software, your programs, reports, screens, menu options, data dictionary, everything. To maintain R3 repository objects means if you want to do any change in the standard software, then you should log in into 000. That is the reason at the time of support packages, at the time of EHP upgradation, new software you are going to impose into the database. You are used to log in into 000 client. Remember this, 000 client is a master client. It is reserved by SAP to maintain R3 repository objects. If anybody asks you about 000 client, don't forget this statement. 000 client is reserved by SAP to maintain R3 repository object. In that class also, I told you this statement for more than 10 times. 000 client is reserved by SAP to maintain R3 repository objects. Then this 000 client is having access to all the tables of the database. Whatever the tables you are having in the database now, you can access all the tables if you log in into 000 client. This 000 client is having baseline customizing settings which are required for German business. For example, you are an Indian. If you create a software, by default the settings will be Indian. The country will be India, currency will be INR, right? The same way that German people made that software default for German business. If you want, you can change by using customizing settings. You select a country, you will have 109 countries there. You need to select your country. That is what customization called. So by default it is having, okay, relogin. The 4 points regarding this 000 client. 000 client is reserved by SAP to maintain R3 repository objects. The second one is 000 client will have access to all the tables of the database. Third one, it is having some baseline customizing settings which are required for German business. And fourth one is the default users are SAP star and DDIC. The second default client is 001. 001 client is a reference client. Referring to what? It is referring to master client, means it's almost a copy of this master client. But here this reference client will have access to only customizing tables of the database, not all the tables. Customizing means, any guess? Customizing tables of the database means what exactly meaning?
Client independent tables.
Customizing, boss. Customizing tables means, the meaning of the customizing tables means the tables which is containing the settings. For example, country, we are having some 109 countries, currency, 100 currencies. Okay, these settings tables will be there, na? That tables. 001 client will have access to that tables. The whatever the settings you are having, all settings related tables, those are called as a customizing tables. 001 client will have access to only customizing tables of the database, and the same, it is also having baseline customizing settings which are required for German business. That means you can start your business in Germany directly by using that settings. But if you want to implement SAP in some other country, you have to change your customizing settings according to your country or region. And another thing is the default users are SAP star and DDIC. 001 client is a reference client. It is having access to only customizing tables of the database. It is having baseline customizing settings, and the default users are SAP star and DDIC. And the third one is early watch client. It is a service client. Okay, SAP people will log in into 00066 client. If your system is having some problem, you don't want to, if you give logins of 000 to SAP people will log in into 000. By logging into 000, they can access all the tables. They can steal your business data. SAP is one of the competitor for you in some other business. I don't want to show my data to SAP. That is the reason we give 066 credentials to SAP. So this client, if you log in into this client, it will only show you the technical content, technical data. That means your RAM, CPU, database size, table space size, file system, and everything you can access by using 066 client. But you cannot see any type of business data of yours. That is what exactly early watch client. It is a service client. So generally, not only for if you are getting the problem, well, the time of implementation also, before going live, SAP will do the pre-go live check. For pre-go live check also, SAP people log in into 066 client only to see your configurations, everything, not your business data. And finally, early watch alert. By using 066 client, they will generate early watch alerts. But after coming up Solution Manager, a 066 client has lost its significance. Now everybody is doing with the Solution Manager only. Before Solution Manager, 066 client has a lot of importance, but slowly that importance is fading now. If your landscape is not having early watch client, then only you will have significance to 066 client. Now you can log in into Solution Manager system, you can access any system in your landscape, and you can access that technical information, you can do the troubleshooting of that particular system. This is what about early watch client. Is it clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, any doubt? No. See, now, okay, you are having three default clients, 000, 001 and 066. In which client I want to do business? I want to implement SAP. Which client I should use? 000, 001 and 066. You know, 000 is reserved by SAP to maintain R3 repository object. Means whenever you are doing any changes to your software, then you should log in into 000. In a regular basis, SAP will release some bug fixes, some corrections for your software. So you need, when you are implementing SAP, you have to keep on update your software, right? How you are updating your apps on your mobile, your operating system, your apps, your Android, everything you are updating. The same way, every software has to be up to date, right? For that purpose, you use 000 client. So it is not for doing business. Fine. 066 client is what? It don't have any business data there. Only technical information will be there. And it is a service client. SAP people will use to log in into that client if you are getting any problem. So I don't want to go to that. So only the remaining option for me is 001 client. But no customer is interested to work with 001 client. Why? What is the reason? So what happens when you install your SAP system? By default, you will get these three default clients. After installation, as a post installation, what we do, we apply latest available support packages and whatever the language package we want to implement. By using 000 client, we do all these things. So most updated client is what? 000. So when I am having most updated client, why should I use 001 client? That is the reason no user is ready to work with 001 client. Now, what is the option? You should not do in business in 000 and 066. If you want, you can do in 001. But I am not interested to do in 001 as it is an old client when compared to 000. You got the point? Why 001 is not used by the customers? As a post installation. For example, when you purchase your mobile, first thing what you do when you connect to the Wi-Fi for the first time, the system will check whether any updates are there or not, right? If there are any new updates, first what you say, you update that and you update all the apps. In the same way, how you are updating all the programs, reports, screens in SAP? By using 000 client. That is the most updated client when you compare with 001 and 066 after post installation. I don't want to use the old clients, I want to use new client, but I can't do business in 000 client. For that reason, what we do, we create a new client. We can create our own clients also, like 100, 200, 300. The range between 000 to 999. Already you are having 000 and 001 and 066. You can give any other number except these three numbers in 000 to 999 range. So what I do, I'll create a new client name. For example, let's take 100. Okay, this 100 client is a empty client. I don't have any customizing settings there, and nothing is there. So what I do, I'll do copy from 000 to 100. I have to create a client. I have to copy the client. To do client copy, that activity is called as client copy. To do the client copy, we are having three types of client copies in SAP. One is local client copy, second one is remote client copy, third one is client export and import. Local client copy means if you create some 100, for example, I'll show you. See, by default I am having three clients: a 000, 001 and 066. What is 000? In a database, we are having different types of data: application data, client specific customizing data, cross client customizing data, user master data, right? And repository data. 000 client will have access to all the tables of the database, and the most updated client also 000. So what I do, I'll create a new client name 100. I'll create a new client name 100. This 100 is an empty client. So you want to do some changes in the software. This ERP software is what? It is the ready-made business application which can be customizable according to your business requirement. You cannot directly use that software. To do some changes in that repository objects or any client specific customizing data, cross client customizing data, if you want to create any user, first of all you should have access. No? For that purpose, what we do the client copy. If the source client and the target client belongs to same system, then we perform local client copy. We are having three types of client copies: local client copy, remote client copy, and client export import. If the source client and the target client belongs to same system, then we perform local client copy. The T code is SCCL. Okay, now 100 is having all the authorizations. By using 100, I'll do all my development, modification, enhancement, and customization in this database. Finish. Then what I do, I'll create a new system called quality system. I'll install a new system. There also by default I'll get 000, 001 and 066. There also same
Bro,
story. So what?
Screen यहाँ जरूर.
Now?
visible.
Yeah.
Yeah. 000 is having access to all the tables of the database. Now I'll create a new client name 100. I'll copy from 000 to 100. Now this 100 also having access to all the tables of the database. By using this 100, I'll do my development, quality, modification, enhancement, everything. Then I have to move this data to quality system. Is there any quality system available? No. So what I do, I'll build a new system. I'll install a new system. There also by default I'll get 000, 001, 066. So the same old story. You cannot work in 000, 066. You can work in 001, but I am not interested. So what I'll do, I'll create a new client name 200. Now same thing, 000 to 200. If you copy 000 to 200, that is local client copy. If you copy this 100 to 200, that is remote client copy or client export import. If the source client and the target client belongs to different systems, this is one system and this one is QA. Dave is one system and your QA also another system. So if the source system and target system, source client and target client belongs to different systems, we can perform two client copies. One is remote client copy, second one is client export and import. Remote client copy means you need RFC for that, remote function call. You have to create some bidirectional communication between these two and you have to copy the data. For client export import, we need TMS. What is TMS? We'll see in next class. Okay, we are having three types. When you go with remote client copy means if the client size is less, we go with remote client copy. If the client size is more, we prefer client export and import. What is the difference between client export import and remote client copy? We'll discuss in next class if possible. How to create a client? By using SSH. Is it mandatory to tell all these things? How to create a client, how to delete client, local client copy, remote client copy, the practical part, everything you know, I think.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, no.
The new guys,
Yes, sir.
Raju, Ranjit, Karthik. So this is client settings. When you are creating some client, you will be having some settings. The first setting is changes and transports for client specific objects. What does that mean? Here it is asking for two things: changes and transports. Can I change? Can I transport? Both the things. For what? Client specific objects. What are the client specific objects we are having? User master data, application data, and client specific data.
Client data, client specific data.
But here the client specific objects means he is referring to only client specific customization, not user master data, not application data. Why not? We'll discuss in next class. Automatic recording of changes means if you do any client specific changes, it will be recorded as a transport request. Recording as a what? Recording as a transport request. The second setting is for cross client object changes. He is not asking about transports. Why? Means if you change any cross client object, means repository or cross client customizing, it should be recorded as a transport request. That is the reason it is not asking you, it is not taking your permission. Can I transport? Only it is taking permission of can I change or not. But for client specific objects, it is taking two permissions. Can I change? Can I transport? Here only can I change. Cross client repository and cross client customizing allowed. No changes to cross client customizing, no changes to repository, no changes to repository and cross client customizing. If it is a production system, we go with this option. Okay, if it is a development system, customizing system, we will go with allowed. Everything should be allowed in your development system. Then only it will allow you to do some changes and move that to quality. From quality to we move to production. And here production level 0 means no restriction, means you can override this. 1 means you cannot override this. 2 means you cannot override, you cannot see that client also. That is what. And ECAT and CAT belongs to your quality client. Quality client needs some dummy application data. To create that dummy application data, we have to run some scripts. That script will give you dummy business data. For that reason, we need to say allow ECAT and CAT, computer aided test tool, electronic computer aided test tool, allowed in quality client. When it comes to development system and quality system and production client, we don't allow that. Only for quality client we allow that. Anything else regarding client? And client copy profiles. Okay, I'll do one thing. Discuss that also in next. Client copy profiles, remote client copy, client export import, and what about these settings in detail we'll discuss. Then only you'll understand TMS, otherwise no TMS. What is time? Yeah. Chalo, that's it for the day. Any doubts?
No.
Please go through this session one more time. So within 1 hour you can quickly recap everything, right? Instead of listening to 6 to 7 sessions of client, you can recap everything within 1 hour. 40 to 50 minutes, I think. How much time we are having to record? Yeah, 49 minutes.